Hey, welcome to Today's 20s, the podcast about surviving and ideally thriving in one of the most wild decades of life, our 20s, in the 2020s. I'm Emma Hartley, and I'm here to explore these ups and downs with you and to provide you with entertaining stories along the way. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to my first ever episode of Today's 20s. I'm super excited that you're here. This has been a project I've been working on for a while now, and I'm really excited to share it with you. As you may have heard in my intro, I'm very passionate about early career and this phase in our life when we are exploring different options in college, beyond college, and the roundabout path that people take when they are in their early 20s. I think it is a fascinating time in our lives. I've certainly had my fair share of different experiences in the professional world, which you'll hear about as we progress throughout this podcast. I thought I'd start out by telling you about this first interview. Something that has really helped me along the way is to connect with people that have really figured out what they want to do with their life. They've found their way based on something they're really interested in, and they've just followed that passion, which has led them to where they are now. Their path may not be clear at the get-go, but they followed their gut and it becomes more clear to them as they progress. One of the key things I've learned since college is when you have a vision early on of what you want to do in your life, it can be really powerful to use that vision to guide you in the next phase of your career. If you don't have a vision of where you see yourself, it's similar to going to the grocery store without a list. You're going to end up at the end with things you want, but you may have left a key item or a staple in your pantry or two that you really needed to get, and you're going to regret not having had a list. Public service announcement: every time I go to the grocery store without a list, it is a disaster. So do yourself a favor and just keep a running list on your phone or whatever, so this does not happen to you. But back to more important conversations. My first guest, Ishel, a dear, dear friend of mine. You'll probably be able to guess after hearing our conversation that we've known each other since elementary school. We did theater together throughout middle and high school, and we've remained friends in college and beyond. We went on spring break trips together and adventures post-college. We definitely have future adventures in store for us, which are obviously TBD. I will warn you that the audio quality could be better, but hey, it's my first time recording and I'm still learning to use all the tools to make remote interviewing as high quality as possible, so it will get better. Anyways, back to Ishel. She is my style inspiration, my fashion guru. No wonder she landed an awesome job at Nordstrom's. She's also the person I go to when I have a creative idea that I want advice on. In fact, she was the first person I talked to about the idea for my podcast. She's undoubtedly an incredibly important friend in my life. Her unique path in the fashion industry and just learning about all the opportunities out there is a really inspiring story to me. Even if you're not necessarily interested in the fashion industry or in a creative field, I still think this will resonate with you. She's a person that is always trying to better the world and just overall an awesome human being. We're going to cover from how we can be our own worst enemy when it comes to holding us back from what we want to do, to how to achieve more sustainable practices in the fashion industry, to some girl talks at the end. Sorry, not sorry in advance to the boys who are listening. You can skip past the part about feminine hygiene. Anyways, I'm really excited for this interview and I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, Ishel.
Okay, sorry, I needed to get that out.
We've known each other for how many years? Like, since third grade? When did we meet? I don't know. When we were too young to remember.
I feel like my parents met, like, your parents first, you know?
That's true.
And then they were like, you should, yeah.
Yeah.
But a long time.
A long time. I feel like my most memorable moment of us, like, growing up was when we went to the beach one day, like, to the Jersey Shore, and then we drove back, and on the drive home, we were like, we have to get our ears pierced together.
Yes.
Spontaneously. So we have
Love
matching cartilage pierces. So cool. Just the coolest. So anyways, Ishel, spelled Ixchel. I got that right?
Yeah.
I was like, now I'm like worried I spelled it wrong suddenly.
No, you're good. That was spot on.
Oh, spot on. I practiced it. Just kidding. Yeah, so I guess, Ishel, if you would start by just telling everyone about yourself, like, where do you live? Where are you now? Like, you have such an interesting story, and it's hard for me to even ask you questions because I feel like I know you so well. But maybe give like a brief introduction of just like who you are and like what you're up to.
Sure. So, yeah, my name is Ishel. I am half Mayan and half white. I feel like that's important to who I am because I really identify with like my mixed race. But I grew up in Pennsylvania with Emma and was born in Costa Rica, so previously, but then moved to the States where my mom grew up. And yeah, met Emma through theater and all of that. And then more onto what I'm doing now. I went to school in Boston at Boston University, and I studied communications, specifically public relations, and spent most of my summers doing like internships in fashion. I knew I wanted to work in the fashion industry, and I knew that with my degree it was more broad, that it would probably be helpful for me to pursue more opportunities specifically in the industry that I wanted to work in if I wanted to go that route with such a broad degree. So I did a lot of merchandising internships and buying and planning. I did an event planning internship as well when I studied abroad in Sydney. And that all kind of brought me to the idea I still wanted to work in fashion, which is the industry that I'm in now. So I work at Nordstrom in Seattle, and I work on their corporate social responsibility team for their private labels. So basically all the stuff that Nordstrom designs in-house, I work on that team to help support the factories that we source out of in all around the world, to ensure that they're paying their workers correctly and that we're helping to empower workers in different initiatives and promoting sustainable ideas as well. So it's kind of a mix of different things, but that is what I do, and I guess a little bit about how I got there.
I think something that is so cool that is kind of unique to your story is you had such a sort of niche interest within the fashion industry, and with that being fashion sustainability. And I really see that now with companies trying to be more and more sustainable, and companies really trying to be outward about their corporate policies and sort of their take on how they are approaching corporate responsibility and sustainability. Could you just talk about why that interests you? What about that really spoke to you? How did you come to that subject as just a personal passion?
Yeah, sure. So I always knew I wanted to work in fashion. I guess not always, but like once I got to school, I kind of realized like I really, really love that industry and forecasting trends and expressing yourself through fashion. I always was like, okay, that is where I want to be. I liked how it was like creative, but also like analytical. But then, so that's kind of what prompted me to like get into the industry, and that's what prompted like my first internships. But then when I studied abroad in Australia, I did a internship with a company called Sherman Center for Culture and Ideas. And I was an event planning intern, kind of just helped to run the events that they were doing. But the event that they did, it was the inaugural fashion hub that they did when I was there. And they had basically a bunch of industry professionals come and speak about different topics that maybe aren't discussed in fashion as often. as like
Mm.
buying or merchandising or
Mm-hmm.
marketing. And two of the biggest ones that they kind of focused on was sustainability and ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And just being immersed in and surrounded by people who were so interested in that area, but also knowledgeable about something that was so niche and was so important to me, really spoke to me a lot. But it also just kind of changed my perspective on the industry completely. As I said before, I was super, super into trends and all of that. And I didn't even think about the impact that this industry has, not only on the environment, but on the humans in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of really what started my whole passion, I guess. And I realized that after really discovering how many honestly awful things happen in the industry, I was I want to work to help better it, because I do love this industry and I think it can be such an awesome way to express yourself. But the fact that I didn't even know all this existed and was so passionate about it made me really want to help to not only raise awareness, but try to do stuff to make it better.
Yeah. And sort of going off of that, where do you see the fashion industry right now in the journey to being more sustainable and more socially responsible? Do you think we have just started? Do you think companies are really jumping on that train? Frankly, do you think companies are just sort of participating because it's what the consumer wants to see? Where do you foresee that going in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a really tough topic, because I do think that right now sustainability in general is a huge trend, which I never like to say that it's a trend, because I think it's something that a trend means, right, it's it comes and it goes, or it comes in waves. And I don't think that sustainable fashion should be a trend. It should be something that stays, and it should be something that's integrated in the start of a company's DNA, so that we aren't producing a ton of clothing that's unnecessary or using new materials all the time. But the issue with it being a trend is that so many companies now see oh my gosh, all these consumers are now wanting sustainable fashion, and they want to know about the workers that make their clothing, and they want all of this. And that's what drives companies to then produce and make different things. So I feel although it's great in a sense that it's trending because it has people talking, it's also forcing companies to go down that route. And if you don't do it right, there can be a lot of greenwashing done that's not even necessarily on purpose, or companies might be trying to tackle a lot of problems where if you try to tackle too many, you're not really getting down to solving any, because you're kind of wrapping your head around everything. So yeah, that's a tough one. But I do think that a lot of companies are trying, at least. It's just tough because sustainable fashion, in my opinion, is not just about materials and the impact on the environment and all of that, but it's also about ensuring that the people making it have good conditions and that they're being treated fairly. Because for me, it's people first, and then once you got that step, you can go environment. But I think there's a lot that can be done to promote material use and not be transparent in the human aspect of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just complicated.
Yeah. How can we as consumers, I know we're kind of going on a different topic of just fashion sustainability, but I'm so interested in it. I feel like you have such a good perspective on it that I feel like everyone would want to hear about it. So how can we as consumers do better in terms of ensuring that what we're buying is sustainable and fair in our clothing? What sort of things, what sort of tools do we have readily available that we can be using to ensure that we are sort of reaching that higher goal of having more sustainable clothes and shoes?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a couple of things that can be done. I think it's also tough though because this is like such a big thing right now that it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
So like number one is just research like the heck out of whatever you want to buy, because you never know when like there could be like a new idea, and sustainability is huge. So everyone has different ideas on like how best to approach it. But I feel like there's like a couple things that will never really change and are things to look out for. So like, for example, price point is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sustainable fashion like is expensive, but there's like a reason behind that. If you are buying a t-shirt for like $10 and it says that it's made out of organic cotton, like it could be made out of organic cotton, but what people don't realize is that in order for a t-shirt to then get that certification, it means that the factory has to pay for it to be certified.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's $10, the factory not only has to be paying for that certification, but also paying the workers that are making the clothing, which is just not possible. So like the idea of fast fashion and sustainability, like that does not coincide in my opinion. Like you cannot have those two. You have to pay more for something that is sustainable.
So like simple fixes would be more like you have a sweater, it has a hole in it. Instead of just going out and buying the same sweater, maybe trying to fix it or thinking about your purchases. Do I really need this trendy top that probably will go out of style next season? I think there are small things too that can be done if people are conscious of it, you know?
No, totally. And I think that when it comes to like expenses, like the way we shop right now, and like this is totally average consumer right now, that we shop way too much and we buy too many things. And that's probably why people think like that sustainable fashion is so expensive, where if you weren't shopping as often and really only focusing on stuff that you'll wear and stuff that is good quality, you won't be replacing it as often.
Right.
You'll be wearing it more. And then you probably wouldn't be spending as much as you are, or it'd probably be like more similar to what you're spending because you're not constantly like throwing it away or giving it away. And you're buying things that will last. So yeah.
That's super interesting. Well, sort of shifting back to like the career side of things, one question that I'm wondering if you have a good example of is, in what ways have you faced either challenges in your career or adversity that you've had to overcome that you didn't really foresee? I think, you know, when we're young and coming out of college, we are faced with new challenges that are completely out of the blue and we just have to adapt. And you certainly have had some very interesting work experiences already.
Yeah, I think for me, and like I think it totally depends on the person on like when this happens, but I think I really had a tough time after high school more so than after college, because I always had a little inkling, like maybe in high school it started that I was like, I want to do fashion or I want to study in fashion. But I was like so self-conscious to say it or to like really get there, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is a very creative field. Like I have no like design experience. Like people can judge you so much on like what you study based on like what they think of you. And I really, really was not confident in myself. And I went into BU as like a psychology major. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I think I switched a couple times. And then I think after freshman year, I was like, okay, I want to do fashion. And I was like, should I go to a specific school that has a fashion program, because BU didn't. And that's when I kind of decided to go in more of like the general route, which I'm really like happy that I did. Like I had no idea what I wanted to study, but I was like, communications is broad, it's intriguing, it can help me in a bunch of different things. And I think the challenge for me was like finding my own path within college, because I think a lot of the people I was surrounded by like knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I more knew that like after my experiences in college, but I had no idea in high school. So that was probably my biggest challenge, is like also like finding a way to not feel guilty about not knowing what you want to do, because you'll eventually find it. You shouldn't compare yourself to other people. And that like once you find whatever you're passionate about, like go for it, you know. And don't let other people's opinions or opinions bother you or affect like the route that you want to take.
Yeah. What sort of advice would you give someone who was interested in fashion if they were in college and interested in the field, but didn't really know how to get started, or someone that has known they want to be in fashion and has had an internship maybe in fashion? And what sort of approach did you take after you had graduated college trying to find a job?
Yeah, so I guess I was lucky where I was exposed to a bunch of different sides of fashion, which kind of like helped me solidify what exactly I want to do. Like I did merchandising, which I did buying for a year, which
What's
was more
the difference
choosing.
between
Yeah.
the two?
Yeah. So merchandising is like the big umbrella, right? It's like, I don't really know how to explain it, but there's a lot of different sides in merchandising. So I kind of say
Gotcha.
like a lot of the business side of fashion is all under like a big umbrella of merchandising. Then within merchandising, you can kind of go a bunch of different routes, and a lot of companies do it differently, but a lot of companies have buying and planning within merchandising. So what that
Okay.
is buying would be more so like choosing the products and like analyzing like what sold well the previous quarter that you want to, or the previous year that you want to rebuy, things like that. And like, I guess analyzing more of trends and things like that, really customer focused. Planning is more like the dollar side. So
Okay.
it can be like, we have this much money, how much of each shoe should we buy based on also like the trends from before. But yeah, or it can also be like allocating products. So there's a lot of different sides to that. But yeah, so I kind of did both of those, and then I had my internship abroad. So I guess like my biggest recommendation would really just to be like super curious about all the different sides of fashion. Cause like I said, I guess merchandising is what people normally go into if they have more of like a analytical perspective and business perspective. But there are so many different sides of fashion, like marketing, there's communications, there's social responsibility, there's design, there's product development, there's sourcing. Like there's so many different sides of it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I guess just be curious and try to do your research, but then also look for different experiences, and also don't be afraid to like look for different companies too, because I think that helped me. I did one internship with the TJX companies, and then I did my Nordstrom internship, and then I did that internship abroad too. So it all kind of showed me different work cultures and paths, I guess.
Yeah. And how has it been working at a big company since the pandemic hit? Like, how did your work change? How have you been able to adapt to the new online work environment?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it wasn't that huge of an adjustment, just because at Nordstrom, we were already like allowed to work 1 day a week, work from home if you wanted to, or if you had a special project that you could do more easily at home, if you had a doctor's appointment, something like that. So I had already been working from home probably 1 day a week for like a couple of months before we started full time. But so like there wasn't really an adjustment on figuring out how to do that. It was more so like, okay, now we're doing this 5 days a week. And then with the pandemic and everything, like a lot of like organizational changes happened in my company. So that was more of a challenge, like figuring out who you're working with now, who you're not working with anymore, and all of that. But I think honestly, it's taught most companies that they can go virtual and they can be successful doing it virtually and not in an office setting.
Yeah. Do you see the work environment changing pretty drastically once things get back to normalcy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know 100% what will happen. I don't
Yeah.
think anyone does, but I think, I mean, at least our teams have been very successful, I guess, working from home, and I think
That's
that's
great.
just shown our teams and our people that we can do that. So I'd anticipate that it wouldn't, that we wouldn't go back to the way things were before, like completely, but I guess we'll just wait and see how it all pans out.
So sort of going off the subject on career, something I think you are very good at is finding an adventure. Can you share a little bit about, like, since you've graduated college, what some of your adventures have been and like what you've enjoyed most about the traveling you've done, and just sort of go into I just feel like you're such a good, like, wanderlust girl. Where would you recommend people go? Like, you know?
Sure. I feel like it can be a good thing and it can be a really bad thing because I am incredibly restless. Like, I can never stay put. But I think that's like also kind of what brought me to Nordstrom, because I went to school in Boston, grew up in Pennsylvania, and actually was born in Costa Rica. So I've always kind of been moving around. And after Boston, I was like, all right, where should I go? And got this opportunity in Nordstrom and was like, okay, I'll hop over to Seattle and go from there. And then, I love traveling. I love seeing new places. And then when the pandemic hit, my roommate and I, we had a place in Seattle, and in September our lease was up, and we knew we could either re-sign a lease, we could go back home to our families and stay there for a bit. But we kind of thought of this idea where maybe we could travel, obviously safely, because I want to like really emphasize that I obviously understand that there's a pandemic going on, and I want to be super safe, and I'm totally aware of that and the consequences that could come from traveling. But we figured that if we drove kind of to different states and stayed in Airbnbs, that we could see a lot of places that we haven't been able to and explore outside. So we actually did a road trip from Seattle to Utah and stayed there for a month and explored around different national parks and did a lot of hiking. And then we went to Idaho, did kind of the same thing, and made our way back up to Washington, stopped up in Oregon as well. And then our work from home got extended till July 2021. So we were like, oh boy, this just means we can go somewhere else. And
good logic.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of bad. But so then we were kind of like, okay, well, let's maybe travel home for some holidays if we can, get some tests done. And we were able to do that. And then we were like, okay, well, where else could we go? And we picked Hawaii. So I am actually in Hawaii right now.
I'm in the cold and you're in the warm.
And I'm here for 2 months with my roommate. And we're just kind of exploring, like, Hawaii has opened up for tourism again, allowing visitors to come once they've been tested, and obviously with like a negative result and all of that. So we are here exploring, and it's just making me want to never have a permanent home again, if I'm being honest. I kind of want to live in a van, so we'll see how that goes.
Have you ever been on Instagram and go to Reels and then end up on someone's page, and then you end up on someone else's page, and then you ended up on someone else's page, and somehow I landed on this Australian couple. I don't know if they were Australian. I feel like when I find someone, they're usually Australian, because I just seemingly always follow Australian influencers. It's like I don't know why. Are there just more of them statistically? I don't know. Like, every time I come upon someone that I'm like, oh, this person has a really interesting life, they just are Australian. Like, I need to go over there. They're really cool people. I've met one. I've worked with one.
I'll go with you, Emma.
Amazing. You can show me the ropes. But anyways, I found this one account that was a couple, and they just bought a van and then DIY refurbished it. And now they just travel around. Actually, they may have been in the UK. I can't tell. They had it like Britishy accent. So it was it's either the UK or Australia. I don't know. But they did it. It was so beautiful how they did it. They found old, what is it, like old dressers and put those in there. They found like repurposed wood that they used for the interior of it. They like recycled fabrics for the shades.
Oh.
Just like they did a phenomenal job with it. They are goals, and they did it on a budget. So I'm very impressed by people that can live that nomadic life. It's very cool.
Oh, that is my exact dream, Emma. Like, that is what I want more than anything, is to live in a van. And anytime I say that to someone, they're like, you are crazy. But I think I would thrive. And if things continue to be remote, I don't see why I can't do that. So
I bet you could get Wi-Fi.
Next time we talk, I'll be living in a van. Yes, you can. I've seen that. The only thing is I would need a driver. So I'm on the lookout for a driver.
You can hire me for $0 an hour.
Wow. Okay, great. When are we going?
I actually was looking up like renting a van from the West Coast 2 years ago. And of course I found this really cool website that was like pimped out like Mercedes van, and they are obviously very expensive. So I was like, all right, I need to find a beater van that I can just refurbish.
Yeah, well, I also love the idea of like building your own one, because then it's like super customizable, and like you can put your own little touches on there, and it's like, I don't know, it would be your home forever. So
a forever home.
I don't know. I'm crazy, but that is my mentality.
I feel like my dream is not the van life. It's more having a tiny house in the middle of the woods. Like one of those like Nordic little cabins that are really minimalist. And there's a company actually, I don't remember what their name is. Surprise, surprise. But you can buy the blueprint and the materials, and they send you the, like, you DIY build this minimalist tiny house cabin. And I was like, how cool is that? That's just such a great idea. Awesome. So maybe when I have an extra couple years on my hands, I will build a Nordic cabin in the woods.
Do it. Oh my gosh. I would come to visit in my van.
Yeah. Van life and cabin life.
Let's do it.
That's amazing. Okay. I'm getting to some of the funner questions that I truly made for you because I'm just genuinely curious. What is a piece of your daily routine that you love and you can't live without?
Honestly, so it's been interesting because I've been in a bunch of different time zones like recently.
Yeah.
So, like my morning has looked super different. Like in Seattle, I'd kind of wake up leisurely. Like my day started at 9, but I like getting started a little bit earlier, but still like leisurely, whatever. And then when I was on the East Coast, same thing, but even more so because I didn't start till like 12. Yeah, 12, or I'd start a little earlier again, but still like a long time. And I'm a morning person, so I'll wake up at like 8. Latest 8 every day. So on the East Coast, it was awesome because I was with my mom and we could go for like a run and then have a coffee on the porch, and it was like awesome morning. Now I'm in Hawaii where I'm 2 hours behind Seattle. So I actually start my work day at 7 a.m. or like 6:30 a.m. So right now I have no morning routine. I literally roll out of bed and start my day. So it's hard to say, but I mean, here, what I've been really enjoying is like just taking my hammock out and like sitting and reading when I have some time. But I don't know that I'm like a creature of habit in a sense that I have like a super routine day. Besides what I eat, I'm pretty like habitual with what I eat. Anyway, that was a boring answer, Emma. I'm sorry.
No, I feel like that's a very, everyone has their own thing, but you drink coffee and tea, or do you drink just coffee in the morning? I'm trying to remember.
I'm a big like intermittent fasting type of person. Like I really like doing that. So I don't eat breakfast. So I'll like do like coffee, tea, and water until like noon.
I do something similar, but recently when I started eating a croissant every morning, and it just really threw off my routine, let me tell you, because I was doing the intermittent fasting thing just because I don't normally get hungry until 10, 11, or 12.
Yeah.
So I kind of would just go straight for lunch. But now I wake up and my body just craves a croissant. And so I
That's
don't have a
amazing.
croissant. I'm like, what am I doing? So to be
That's
honest, I just keep
amazing.
buying croissants and I have a croissant every morning. So
I mean,
that's,
why would you stop doing that?
just
That
living
sounds
my life.
awesome. Yeah, that's a great routine. I maybe need to go buy some croissants. Although I would literally eat, like, that's my issue though. If I made like a whole thing of croissants, I would not be able to stop myself. I would just eat them all.
Yeah.
So I cannot buy croissants.
What I do is I buy them pre-made and then I put them in the freezer, and then the night before I take one out and I let it thaw for the night. This is definitely not food code regulated. And then I put the oven temperature at 300 degrees, and then I put the croissant in the morning. And once it hits 300 degrees, like I put the croissant in while it's preheating, and usually a couple minutes after it hits 300, it's like perfectly crispy.
Oh,
So that's...
I really want a croissant now. I might need to go find one.
Would highly recommend this as a morning routine.
Yeah.
Little jam. It's great. I truly cannot get off this train, and who knows if I'll ever go back to intermittent fasting.
Honestly, why would you at this point? That sounds much better.
Okay. Another fun question.
Okay.
What is a favorite product of yours that you can't live without? Could be
okay,
beauty,
so I have something
food.
that comes to mind, but
Love.
oh wait, food too. I have something.
Oh.
I mean, wow,
there
there's
can
so
be
many things.
multiple.
Okay, well, this one's like super basic. I feel like everyone says this, but I literally cannot live without avocados. Like, I think I eat one a day.
We have excess avocados right now. It's a very unique problem.
Wait, that's amazing.
It's a problem that's
Send
never
some
happened
over.
to me before.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I love avocados, but that's like basic and everyone does. And I feel like they're trendy, but, this is kind of weird. So like, feel free to cut this out if it's like weird, but, I feel like it shouldn't be weird to talk about these kind of things. Like, we should normalize them because it is a normal thing that happens. But I just recently, this is also kind of like sustainability, like related too,
Yes.
but I just recently bought a menstrual cup.
Love.
And I'm obsessed with it. I'm literally obsessed with it. We'll never go back to like using tampons or pads or whatever. And it's better for the environment. You only need one, and that's it. And I think that, like, I'm upset that it wasn't like something that was taught to me when I like first got my period, you know, because I think it's like an awesome alternative, and it's also like super easy to use. And again, like just like the sustainability part of it, and also like cutting down costs, like not having to buy that kind
They're
of stuff.
so expensive. Tampons are so expensive.
Yes, and they shouldn't be. And I think like everyone's like, oh, it's so gross, like I don't want to try that, but it's not. It's all natural, and it's also just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm literally obsessed with it after using it a couple times, and I have been telling like all my friends to go buy one because I really think that that's like the best way to go.
How did you hear about it?
So I've heard of them for a while, but I was kind of that person who was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stuck in like my routine. Like I don't know. That's like, it's just scary to think of a new product for that, you know? But then I kind of started thinking about like, I think I've always been like, I need to use it, but then it's such a habit to like go and buy tampons and pads when you're done, like, and get them and stuff. So, I kind of would always forget that this was an option and that I wanted to try. And then I was thinking about like, honestly, like New Year's resolutions. And one of them was like, I really want to be like more conscious about like my whole footprint and stuff. And I think I do a good job mostly, but then I was like, this cuts down so much. And again, the cost part of it is amazing. So, I knew about it, and then I just kind of did it. And I bought one and I loved it. So highly recommend. Definitely favorite product right now.
That's amazing. My most recent one, I think that's like similar on the hygiene train is I've stopped buying shaving cream because I always forget it at the store. I always forget it. Truly always forget it at the store. Never buy it, run out of it. And then I'm like, well, now I don't have shaving cream. Great. But I just started using coconut oil. And I don't know if it's bad for the pipes. So if you're a plumber listening to this and you're telling me that this is really bad, I'm so sorry. But I just use I have coconut oil that I put in just like a regular ramekin from the kitchen. My roommate doesn't know that I put it in the shower.
Now she does.
And so anyways, I put coconut oil from the kitchen in a ramekin, and I just use that as shaving cream, and it makes your skin so soft. It doesn't clog the razor as much as like shaving cream does. Do you know how shaving cream like kind of clogs your razor? It doesn't do that. And
it's not foamy. Wow.
Yeah. And then your skin, I swear, is glowy for like a full day after you shave because you've also moisturized your skin.
Yeah, that's super smart. I've put like coconut oil and like pumps of lotion when I like put lotion on my legs before, and that's worked really well, but that's really smart. I'm going to start doing that. Thanks, Em.
So there's your DIY hack for the day.
Love it. I love that.
Today's 20s to you. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. You can find me hosting Today's 20s podcast every week on all major platforms, and connect with me on Instagram at Today's 20s spelled out, or send me a message on my website, which is www.todays20s.com. Thanks so much, and see you next time.